Britain has always been a maritime nation, linked to the rest of the world by the seas and rivers that feed us. And now, Sky News has learned that in future, goods coming into British waters may face fewer charges than ever before. An intentional echo of Britain's history as a trading nation. A history that begins in this place.
For centuries, this was the epicentre of British trade, and if you were bringing goods into the country, you would have to take them here. Custom House. You'd come up this staircase, having moored your ship on the river outside. You would go through this corridor with all of the details of what you were importing, whether it was food, spices, cloth, textiles, and you would take them in here. This is the long room. And here, you'd go up to the counter over there, you'd pay your duties to the officials, and only then could you sell those goods onto the merchants who were thronging around this room.
Today, the tariffs aren't processed on written ledgers and books, everything's done electronically. But the same principle is in place. When goods enter this country, they pay a tariff, a kind of tax. For the past 45 years, those tariffs were decided by the EU. But when the UK leaves, especially without a deal, it may suddenly be able to decide them all over again.
So why does that matter for the rest of us? Because so much of what you buy in the shops has to come from overseas, which means it faces tariffs, and that might be good news for producers here in the UK, but it's bad news potentially for shoppers because higher tariffs mean higher prices. And that's why the government is considering, in the event of a no-deal Brexit, cutting those tariffs. In fact, across the board, to give you an idea of what we're talking about, this shows you the UK schedule of tariffs, every single item coming into this country. And Whitehall sources tell me the plan is to cut 80 to 90% of those tariffs down to zero. It would represent the single biggest liberalisation of trade in British history.
Some goods will be protected. Lamb and beef imports will still have big tariffs to safeguard farmers. But most foods, for instance the cereals used to make bread and snacks like crisps, are expected to see their tariffs cut to zero. Car imports will still face a 10% tariff, but the tariffs on car parts will be slashed. It's a difficult balancing act.
Tariffs always have the potential for controversy between producer interests, consumer interests, even between different producers, between people who use products to make end products. This has the potential to be really controversial in most countries, and we've avoided much of that in the UK.
This 21st century customs schedule is still a closely guarded secret in Whitehall, and if there's a deal next week, it may never see the light of day. But it is the first hint of the answer to the biggest question of all. What is this maritime nation's economic destiny after it leaves the EU? Ed Conway, Sky News.